Hi there, welcome to GrainTV. It's Friday, October 16th. We had a mixed day in grains. Corn managed to eke out a 1 1/4 cent advance, while soybeans and wheat closed lower. Beans losing 7 cents to the downside and wheat losing 10 1/4 to the downside. Both of those commodities closed below pivotal points. Soybeans closing below $9 for the first time since Monday, while wheat in Chicago closed below $5. Neither of those markets seem to have much enthusiasm today, even though we had relatively decent export volume reported this morning by USDA. Let's take a look at what USDA reported for weekly sales. First, for corn, we had 598,000 metric tons, which was within analyst expectations, but above what we have seen last week. So that was somewhat positive and supportive. In soybeans, at the upper end of the range with 1.4 million metric tons. Not as big as last week, but still a very respectable number. Wheat came in at 460,000 metric tons, which is a significant improvement over the last few weeks, just barely eking out the upper side of analyst expectations of 450,000 metric tons. Now, also this morning, we got another announcement that China had bought more U.S. soybeans, buying 270,000 metric tons. That was announced this morning. That makes 3 days this week that China announced purchases of totaling 200,000 or more on those 3 days. So all of those factors have sort of been supporting the bean market, but today we just couldn't seem to get much enthusiasm. There was news out of Brazil that planting pace is quickly moving forward. They're above the pace set this time last year. So there just isn't much real enthusiasm to keep this market above $9 right now. Let's take a look at our export scorecard that we look at every week and see how our exports are faring in relation to USDA's export pace. So right now for soybeans, this is where we have some good news. We're actually exceeding the pace that we need to reach USDA's annual forecast. Remember, last Friday in the WASDE report, they actually lowered the annual forecast of exports for the year. So that's lowered our green line benchmark, and we're actually exceeding that. Now, when we turn to corn and wheat, it's a much different story, especially in corn, where we are significantly behind pace based on what USDA is forecasting. We're about 30% below pace to reach that USDA goal. So what that means is either USDA is going to have to lower the number, or we're going to have to see better export volume in the not foreseeable future to get us back on pace. In wheat, we're just treading below that trend line or below that pace line. We were doing a little bit better earlier in the marketing year, but here lately, especially 2 weeks ago when we had under 100,000 metric tons of sales, it's just been really sort of a sluggish situation. This week was positive, but again, we need to see ongoing business come to us, and we haven't seen it. In the case of, for example, Egypt's tender that it was announced yesterday, where they bought wheat from Russia and Romania for the second week in a row, the U.S. continues to sort of get shut out of these big deals, which is not promising for the wheat market. Let's switch gears and talk about basis. In corn, we actually had a 2-cent advance this week, which, when you consider we're in the midst of harvest, that's a pretty good sign that farmers are holding tight to the corn that they're harvesting. We saw a 2-cent advance. A lot of that advance was fueled by moves along the river terminals where barge rates are dropping fast. A lot of that is due to lower energy costs, but also in light of sort of slow movement in the export market. We're not seeing the demand for barges. So barge freight is coming down. That's helping support interior basis. In soybeans, not as good a story. We were unchanged for the week. We did see a little bit of strength along the river terminals, as I mentioned, because of the barge freight. But overall, basis levels at, say, end users for the soy plants were mostly lower. There were some that were unchanged, but there were also some plants that were down a dime or more this last week as harvest continues to pace along. So, right now we're looking for basis in corn to probably be the first to recover, because we do think farmers are holding pretty tightly to corn. And so we would look for basis to start moving up and continue to move higher as we go through the rest of this calendar year. So that's all we got this week. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.